In the late 90s, two of the biggest groups in the independent hip-hop scene went at it in one of the most underrated and obscure rap beefs of all time. This feud was between Company Flow and LP versus Soul and Anticon. This video will take a look at the inception of the feud, diss tracks exchanged, and the resolution. Soul was born James Timothy Holland Jr. on September 25, 1977 in Portland, Maine. He has been a part of several collectives including Live Poets, the Puddle Dynamics, the Babylonianz, Soul and Skyrider Band, and more. He recorded his first demo in 1992 at just 15 years old, where he also formed 45 Below Records, which include himself and rappers Alias, J.D. Walker, and producer DJ Mood Swing 9. From 1995 to 1997, he released a few albums and 12-inch singles as a part of groups Northern Exposure and the Live Poets. These releases actually got some traction in college radio play. In early 1998, Soul teamed up with 6 other MCs and manager Bailey Parker to form Anticon Records in Los Angeles, California. The label was the West Coast answer to the independent hip-hop scene during a time where rockers in the East Coast were dominating that sphere. Anticon specialized in alternative hip-hop and has been described as quote-unquote the hip-hop equivalent of post-rock. Some signees include Alias, Doswan, Odd Nostrum, and Yoni Wolf, all of whom are co-founders. In an interview with Hip Hop Site, LP stated that he and Soul first met in 1997 at Rocksteady. Soul was a fan of LP's work with Company Flow, took a photo with Meline, and gave L a copy of his record. L didn't think much of the record at the time and spoke to Soul once more after about doing shows in Maine. This leads us to the beef. The feud started because of a misunderstanding, as explained in an interview with Hip Hop Site. The site interviewed both LP and Soul, and they each gave their accounts on what happened. Soul used to run a website called TrueHipHop.com, where he essentially posted hip-hop memes. On the site, he posted a photo of Company Flow with the UK girl group The Spice Girls with the caption, Company Flow versus The Spice Girls. The image does not exist anymore, but imagine something like this. Koflo found the image and were upset. They felt Soul was dissing them by comparing them to a girl group. Additionally, Koflo felt it was insulting to the independent hip-hop scene in New York. Soul then went to New York to record some material with the Addams Family, a supergroup spearheaded by Vaster and Voromega of Cannibal Ox. There, Soul bumped into Mr. Len, who asked Soul why he dissed the group. Soul clarified that it was not meant as a diss, but a compliment, because he felt Koflo was the face of the independent hip-hop scene. Soul also stated that he loves Koflo and doesn't want beef, and he felt that they were throwing shade on the track Wait.
Is it, live, you fucking suckers? I would have been a witness to collapsing fame squadron.
Soul took this as a diss because he was part of the group The Live Poets, but LP confirmed in the Hip Hop Site interview that this was not a diss, and was instead a reference to Run DMC and their track Sucker MCs. Len clarified to Soul that this was not a diss at him and or Anticon, and Soul accepted the answer and moved on, until Koflo dropped their song End to End Burners 3 months later.
Diss me on the internet like picket line crossing Teamsters. Skies was really down with hip-hop only if convenient. Kill him.
LP stated that this wasn't specifically about Soul, but people generally dissing Koflo online in chat rooms. On the physical copies of the 12-inch single, there's a message written on the back that read, "To all the heads that fantasize that we're dissing them specifically, sorry to disappoint. If that time ever comes, you'll know. In the meantime, you're embarrassing yourself." After reading this, Soul was upset. Even though LP has stated it was actually trying to diffuse any potential misunderstandings, he still took it as an insult. Things only got worse when Soul returned to California and he heard through the grapevine that LP was allegedly talking trash about him behind his back, specifically to groups like the Living Legends. However, in the Hip Hop Site interview, LP stated that he hasn't said anything about Soul publicly and never even thought of him. Soul was mad and confused. He thought that this was squashed and settled, so he responded on Wax with a diss track, Dear LP, where he spells LP's name EL-PEE.
I strike you, awestruck you, feminine the black ball. I'll be serving you, you're serving me, ice cream in a mall. Some fool said this is an underground cannabis in LL. Well, that's comedy, cause I'll serve all 3 of y'all.
The track landed on Anticon's Hip Hop Music for the Advanced Listener in 1999. On this song, Soul not only took shots at LP and Company Flow, but everyone they were affiliated with, record labels and distributors like Raucus, who Koflo was signed to, and Fat Beats, who distributed the End to End Burner single. Prior to releasing the song, Soul claims LP allegedly called him up, sucking up to him, trying to convince him to not put a diss track out. Soul was already on the fence on whether or not he should put the diss track out, and LP calling him didn't make it any easier. However, LP didn't comment on this at the Hip Hop Site interview. Later, Len calls up Soul, threatening him, saying that Koflo would mess Soul and Anticon up if he ever put the record out. Soul snapped back saying not to threaten him, and that they can also duke it out in a live battle, as LP used to be a battle MC. LP stated that he only heard bits and pieces of Soul's diss track, and originally didn't think it was worth responding to. However, he was seeing comments online about the diss and got fed up, and responded with his own diss track titled Linda Trip.
Automatic and absolutely the poisonous shit licking one cypher reject. New England rich boy, soon got the Bay Area eject. Marionette pussy non-veteran. I got more friends than you where you live. I don't pause when I stop they floor mess.
The title of the track references the real-life woman named Linda Tripp, who exposed Bill Clinton for his affair with Monica Lewinsky during his time in office as US President from 1993 to 2001. The track starts off with a recorded voice message from Soul to Company Flow saying how much he loves the group and doesn't want beef.
Straight up, if it wasn't for cats like me, for real, and I'm not bullshitting, if it wasn't for cats like me, it wouldn't be in the door. And I know that's true now. You know what I'm saying? Because now you're really using my name.
Where's Len? I told Len that fucking I said, I love company flow. I don't want to be against you guys. I quote unquote, I said, I want to be down. You know, like I said, I don't want beef with you guys. You know, I'm like, dude, like fucking, this whole shit is bananas, you know?
Like, you're gonna make it by dissing me. You know, the record that got Kofo scared. You know what I'm saying? It's like, do I sound scared?
No, I don't think you sound very scared.
This directly reflects the real-life scenario where Tripp recorded conversations with Lewinsky to prove she slept with Clinton. The track was a vicious and brutal lyrical onslaught from Meline as he tore into Soul, effectively damaging his credibility and career. And honestly, after that, things just went silent. There was no additional response from either end. What's fascinating is that despite the track being over 25 years old and fairly obscure, it is still being discussed in some hip-hop circles.
Amici comes up to me, and he's like, and I'm almost positive, granted, this is 25 years ago, so as I always say as a disclaimer, anything that's here, this is my version of the events. Other people can have their own versions of the events, but in my memory, Amici comes up to me and he's like, yo, did you hear about this? Like, L's coming in, he's gonna do this diss record for this guy. Like, did you hear about this? And he's probably asking me because he knew I was such a big fan, you know? And I mean, I'm fucking like 19 or 20 years old, so like I'm an uber fan, you know? And I was like, who's that? You know, I didn't know who it was. I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea that there was a beef going on. I knew nothing, you know. But I'm impressionable and I'm young and I'm fiery, so now I'm getting hyped, you know. Like, he's telling me, I'm like, who? He did what? What the fuck? Why the fuck would you say that? What? You know, like, I'm getting like, at least in my head, and probably to some degree I said it too. I don't see why I wouldn't have. Like, who the fuck? Why the fuck would anyone want to diss L or diss Company Flow? Like, you know, this is like, to me, it was like the best shit, you know, it was the indie shit that I loved. It's like, why would you want to diss that? Why wouldn't you just want to be part of it?
And what do you think of the whole Drake, Kendrick Lamar diss tracks, the back and forth beef? Who won? And how does that compare to your old Dear LP diss track that you put out, which Run the Jewels fans are still upset. To this day, they're still upset that you put that out. They think that was recent and you still have
still commenting. They're mad because their guy lost.
Yeah.
You know, that shit's started over my perceived, you know, people talking shit, and it resulting in my music not being where I thought it should be. You know, like up at Fat Beats, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, you know, so, it's like, that's nothing. You know what I mean? That's just like a reason to start a beef. I'm going to battle you. You know what I mean? Like I would do that now. You know what I mean? Like if I was like, if somebody was like talking some shit I didn't like and I was with my friends, I'd be like, you know.
That was the beef between Soul and LP, a beef that started as a result of a misunderstanding. But it did give hip-hop some break diss tracks. It's up to fans to decide who won the battle. The next installment of the LP Beef series will be a look into his beef with Esoteric and the Demigods. That is going to be a large multi-part project, so stay tuned for that.